Well, hello YouTube. Welcome back. This is BalorMage, and this is the build guide for my favorite build so far this league, which is my Spark Inquisitor. If you did see the video that happened a few days ago, that was when I was still working out exactly what I wanted. There's been a few changes through then. I'll try and go over them somewhere near the front of the video. If that's all you need, you can just watch that and grab the path of building. Footage in the background here is of me running maps without the headhunter on, because the headhunter is worth 2.5 times the entire build from head to toe. So it seemed appropriate to show you what the clear looks like when you don't have a headhunter on. What your mapping experience looks like. The answer is still really good. You miss out on the speed of having a headhunter, which is the main reason to wear it, is so that you can go super zoomy through the map. It's the reason I put it back on. It's the reason I'll keep using it, but the build doesn't rely on it. You do not need it, and you can definitely farm yourself a headhunter using this build when you don't have one yet. So super fantastic. Really enjoyed it. So jumping into game, boom. So we did make a few changes since last update. First of all, we did get a +2 aura helmet, which was necessary if I wanted to change into the Nebulous and get 90 all res. And we got +3 to cold resistance on our chest so that we could give up the +1 and get an extra unnerve on our gloves. And we also got an extra 2 pierce on them. So replaced gloves. That was cool. Mostly nothing else has changed. Just a few levels since then. So going over from head to toe. This is a Spark character with a lot of projectile speed, which is, in my opinion, the only way to play Spark. This has been super fun. We are using the Aegis Aurora and Purity of Ice and +3 maximum cold on our chest to reach 90 max cold res, which makes us very tanky. And then we're using Melding to give us 90 all res, which makes us very tanky. I quite enjoy being this tanky. This character is near immortal in most cases, at least in most mapping cases. We are, of course, using our Hazardous Reach to make sparks fire in a projectile. And even with only one Call of the Brotherhood on, it turned out Nebulous was actually the best weapon I could possibly get. I couldn't actually make a weapon beat it, so we ended up putting the Nebulous on. I couldn't afford a double damage one, which was obviously the best thing that you could possibly get. So I bought one with cast speed and a little bit of elemental damage implicit. So it was only like 80C to get some cast speed on it. If you are going for a Nebulous, you should try and get something on your implicits. Don't just buy one that's, you know, 20 chaos and has nothing. Look for something. Look for elemental damage, cast speed, like something relevant to just get a little bit more out. You don't really pay very much for it, so it's always worth something if you can't afford the double damage ones. We use a lot of auras, but most of the auras are pretty straightforward. Determination, Vitality, Defiance, Banner, Zealotry, a Clarity, and a Purity of Ice. But this one, Blood and Sand, is absolutely my favorite tech so far. Because the amulet gives 30 quality to skills, and the quality on Anomalous Blood and Sand is projectile speed. Now this is only a 10% aura. It is a very small amount of damage, even if you link it with a level 4 enhance for even more quality. And then you end up with 74% projectile speed, which is insane. That's so helpful. It really kicked this build up into like super fun mode. The other thing that I want to mention is I also went with a normal Spark, not an ult quality Spark. I believe that all the ult quality Sparks for a build like this are really just a bait. They're actually there to trap you. 71 projectile speed for its like worth in weight is better than any of the ult qualities. We could get 5 extra projectiles or something with the amulet. I think it's 5, but we already fire 14 projectiles. So yeah, you go from 14 to 21. It's good to have more projectiles, but losing 70% projectile speed for it. And then you go, well, you could make up projectile speeds with a helm enchant. Yes, the helm enchant for 3 projectiles could go away, and then you could get 30% proj speed back. And then what you're doing is going from 30% proj speed, or going from 71% proj speed to 30% proj speed, and going from 3 additional projectiles to 5 additional projectiles. So you gain only 2 projectiles out of that. It's just not worth it. Same thing for the Pierce. Same thing for the Pierce. You can get Pierce from an alt quality, but it's just not worth it. What you can get out of your cluster jewels is only 10 projectile speed more. Oh, that guy didn't show up. So cluster jewels. This is important, especially since I'm sharing this path of building. This cluster jewel that I have up the top here, I actually bought this first thinking I would need leech. This is a much more expensive cluster jewel than this one down here. Turns out never needed leech. Just didn't need it. Don't take any damage. Literally irrelevant. So I'm not even using the super expensive node that makes it expensive. So just buy 2 of these instead. Snowstorm, super important. We need Snowstorm. We don't care what goes to the back, and we really don't actually care what goes here. This was the cheapest version that I could get at the time. If it's still really cheap, go for that. If not, get something else, but just make sure Snowstorm is at the front. That's the important one. This one for Sadist is a really, really nice node, but the only Sadist I found that had Snowstorm at the time had Doriani's Lesson, which is what made it super expensive. Just not worth it. All 4 of my mediums are the same. Repeater, aerodynamic. 1 additional pierce, 10% speed, 10% damage, 8% cast speed, 30% damage. Repeat 4 times. That's the whole thing. Now, I did want to address this character is quite high level. What do you do when you're not level 99 yet? Because this character is so goddamn fun and so goddamn tanky that I accidentally hit level 99. Really simple. You actually literally don't need these. We already still have too much life and too much energy shield, even for super juiced content. We also don't need all of this. This was all just fluff. It's not even that effective. I didn't really have anything else to do with my points at this point that was good enough. I couldn't stretch to another cluster jewel. So we took all those. The only thing worth saying is I do have Leech's energy shield on this one, which is just because, again, I have another point. The 40% increased effect of non-damaging ailments is the important part. You really don't need Leech. It's just, I didn't know where else to put my points at that point. So if you're going to drop this wheel, just make sure that you move that 40% non-damaging here. Makes your shock larger. That increases your damage. That is good. We are max block. We are max spell block. Aegis Aurora is healing us. It is an insane amount of tankiness. Super. I cannot stress how much fun I had playing this build. Spark is one of my all-time favorite skills. Right, so we ended up with only about 4.4 mil DPS, which is I am aware that sounds low, and that's because it kind of is for the amount of money that I've put in. But here's the big kicker. You absolutely annihilate things if there's a wall. It is very, very reasonable if you're in a small boss room to assume that Spark will hit 4 times because it bounces off walls. And as soon as you do that, you're doing 17 mil DPS, which is quite good. But again, I made this as a mapper, not necessarily a bosser. It can boss. We have some bossing footage. I did some bosses to make this happen. Some pinnacle bosses all got done. Cirrus and the 2 big bosses, we did those. It does all your bossing fine. What I will do is attach the entire Cirrus fight to the end of this video. I did a bit of testing in that fight. That's not a burst down as quick as I can. That's a how much can I screw up and still live part. So like I stood in die beams and meteors and you know, like really trying to test its tankiness for the video. So we'll chuck that at the end. You enjoy that. Can it do simulacrums? Oh. Oh, yeah. That hurts. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm getting stuck. I'm stuck. Oh, no. Okay. No. Sort of. It died at wave 17 and then several times in other waves after that. It's not particularly great. I'm not ailment immune. I get sapped. I get brittle. It does only have 6 pierce, which like 6 pierce is more than enough even for super juiced mapping, but in the later simulacrum waves, 6 pierce is not a lot. It didn't really feel good. A better player could probably be getting, I have the damage to do like wave 26 or so. I'm not that good and I don't enjoy them, so I only tried it once, but it was not good. I wouldn't call it a simulacrum farmer. You can do all of your mapping, you can do all of your bosses and all of your pinnacle bosses and stuff when you need to, but this is really focused on being a mapper. That's what I'm super enjoying. That's what's good at. The last thing that I will address that's important is that I also stopped upgrading, and we can add a lot of DPS to this by simply putting in a bottled faith, which I just never bothered to buy, which will bring us up to 5.3 million. Doing that, we would probably end up getting a small jewel with phasing on it because I don't like not having phasing. But I just stopped upgrading because the character did everything and obliterated everything, and I just didn't need anything else. It was fine. So I just stopped there. We did play around with a second path of building that would allow us to go over here and get pain attunement and run petrified blood. But what ended up happening was, after all the screwing around, it did only get up to 5.5 mil, which wasn't like the 10 to 12 that I would have thought it needed to bother doing that. So I just didn't do it. Lastly, leveling. If you plan on leveling this character, I do not have leveling path of buildings, but it was super simple. I leveled with Spark because it's fun for me to level with the ability that I am going to be using. However, I leveled with an anomalous Spark because it added 2 pierce for free. I just bought one, sold it to a vendor with a regret, and then put it on. And then leveled with faster projectiles in my links, and I used Unleash instead of Spell Echo as soon as I got it. Everything else was the same. It was super good. It was very simple to level, just straight out spell damage like any generic caster, straight up to Elemental Overload. I went over here and took the non-crit lightning damage as lucky, and then cast speed, and then came over the top here to take damage nodes, right? And then over here for more damage nodes. And then at that point, I believe I went up and put a cluster jewel in. I went up and put my entire first cluster jewel in. And as soon as that was done, I changed into crit by taking my crit wheels and changing my links for crit and crit damage. And then I just started filling out all the defenses. I just started filling out the rest of the tree. Unleash made Spark really nice to level. It isn't necessary in maps. Spell Echo is better. Woke Spell Echo would be better again, but again, the character was just doing so well, I just stopped investing. Yeah. Real important parts is if you've only got 87 max res and you don't have a special Nebulous, like a double damage one or something, it's not worth using Nebulous. Get a normal +1 weapon. The other thing is, it is really important to get your purity to level 23. In case anyone didn't know that, that's where you get a bunch of extra max res. If I had a 22 purity device right now, I'd only have 88 max res instead of 90, which is why I needed to get a corrupted Crown of the Inward Eye with Sparks Fire additional projectiles. That being said, Crown of the Inward Eye doesn't give you anything that you need. It's just generically good and relatively cheap. You could craft yourself a a +2 aura blizzard crown or a +2 aura anything. And you could fit extra things in. You could get precision if you got RMR on it. You could get a ton of things. You could even get an influenced helmet. there's a ton going on that you could do. There are so many options here. But this is how I ended up doing it. My absolute favorite. I did end up putting even more auras on my life because I just don't die. I just don't need that life, and that freed up a lot of mana to just be able to cast infinitely, which is super nice. I do have a Divergent Righteous Fire and a Phantasmal Smite because of the quality of the amulet. These can just be replaced with normal Righteous Fire, normal Smite. It's fine. The Phantasmal Smite is like quite a bit of money. It's 7. I think it's less than that when it's not a level 20. But it is, yeah, 7x, which is quite good for how much attack speed it gives, but really not. Just a normal smite is fine. I only press smite and sigil when I'm come up to a boss. I'll just really like boop, and then that's it, and that instantly like 2.5 times your damage. So you get like proper boss damage if you do that, and you just don't need it for clearing. So yeah, super fun. I've enjoyed this build so much more than I thought I would when I started it. I actually thought it was going to be a trash idea. I named the character Baylor Bad Build Won't Work, and then just casually accidentally got to level 99 because it was so much fun to play and so incredibly ridiculously tanky. So yeah, that's the build. Please enjoy some boss fight stuff at the end, which I do want to stress is not this build's main thing. It's not made as a bosser. I would not make this as a boss farming build, but it is capable of doing your bosses when you get to them, as we'll demonstrate. It's just not the quickest in the world, but it is also super tanky and incredibly safe. So yeah, fun times. I will see everybody later. Thank you all for watching. Now the question is, does this guy kill me with his zappy bit? Zap me. Zap me. Zap me again. Zap me again.
Die.
What about this thing? I don't want to stand in that. Okay, so the question then is, can I actually damage him?
Die.
That's not bad. That's not that bad.
Obliteration. Creation itself. Pointless.
The others found strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. I am not so foolish.
Ooh, okay. All right, so you can't stand in the degen stuff forever? Oh, should I eat a meteor?
Be silent.
Just to see if I can?
Your lives are meaningless. Why resist?
Glorious flames.
Rain of stars. Be a
Life really interesting enough to warrant all this pain. Die.
beyond. There is only horror.
No flasks? No, okay, I'd die. Okay, we can't do that.
Watch. You.
Had to find out. Hey, you gotta try it. Otherwise, I don't know. I can tank die beams all day, but I cannot tank the meteor. FF15.
Fury Alpha Cosmos. Pointless. Be utterly annihilated. Glorious flames. Embrace nothingness. Creation itself. Rain of stars. You are nothing.
Do you yet see the futility of your efforts? Die.
Your lives are
Meaningless.
Fury Alpha Cosmos. Why resist? Creation itself. Obliteration.
The edge of death, my heart races. I am alive.
This is now phase 4.
Beyond, there is
I mean, we can't
only
tank that.
horror. Everlasting fire.
Meaning
Is
Can I tank this?
an illusion.
Yeah.
Die.
Yeah, what's a die beam? What's a die beam, guys?
Silent.
What about this thing?
I have seen
Yeah.
beyond
I mean, that's reasonably tanky. That's reasonably tanky for sure.
fire. Die.
meaning
Is an illusion. Be silent. Beyond, there is only horror. Everlasting fire.
feel the thrill of
The void. Die.
I felt
Cool.